welcome everybody to another edition of Be in the Know. Table games and a lot more. There's probably some things you don't even want to know about we're going to tell you about. But today I'm very honored to have a guest. He's an author, a podcaster, Vantage Play expert, full-time father, and he actually got a day job as in the casino management. So welcome, Andrew Yule.
Oh, thanks, Benny.
How's Vegas today?
It's hot.
Hot.
How's Ohio?
It's probably going to be hot later on, and we'll discuss that shortly. But man, you're a busy guy. I mean, you got a lot of things going on, and we'll get back and let you discuss some of the things you're doing right now. But let me go back into history and how we met. So I took a job for a short period of time at the Casablanca Resort in Mesquite. And when I got there, Andrew was a floor supervisor. And, we talked about things, and I could see that, he was a little something special and had a real passion for the industry. And anytime I see that, I'm bound to gel with a person like that. And so we got together, and while I was up there, I also met another gentleman whose name we'll say is Mark. And Mark was a very sharp and talented individual. I just knew right off the bat he wasn't just an ordinary manager. And Mark kind of was a person that you just knew something unique was going to happen. And Andrew, I think you had a unique experience with Mark, and it led to you becoming an author. So why don't you just expand on that just a little bit?
Well, Mark taught me, even before I met you at the Casablanca, Mark and I started together down the road at one of the other casinos, and he started teaching me as soon as he got onto our shift, started teaching me the business, the ins and outs. I think I was still dealing when I met Mark originally, and he just kind of imparted a lot of knowledge on me about the games, from both sides of the table. And I came to find out that he knew how to count cards and that he was willing to work with me on that, which I'd already kind of studied a little bit, but he was willing to spend some time and work with me. So I was able to get some really good practice because my job at that point was standing around watching blackjack tables. So Mark and I were able to have some pretty intimate lessons on how to run the decks down, how to play, and at what point you should raise your bets, all the ins and outs of card counting. So I had an opportunity to learn that a lot of other advantage players don't get, which is like right on site or, in the casino learning, especially from somebody with inside knowledge like Mark had. So I was very lucky to learn that way.
So I only hung around for probably about 30 days. And then when
is that all you were there for?
Yeah, 35 days, I think. And then I went down to the D. But I look back and and all of a sudden you're calling me and you're telling me you're going on the road. Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, when we met you, we already kind of had our operation going. It was mostly just going to Vegas on the weekends and kind of hitting them up there. But shortly after you left, we decided to start traveling and make a full-time gig out of it. Well, I decided to. Mark was kind of forced into it. And we did. We started traveling. We went all over the place, California, down south, the East Coast, Connecticut, the big casinos out there, the Northwest, the exploits of which are well detailed in my book, The Blackjack Insiders.
The Blackjack Insiders was basically the whole story from start to finish of how that went. Now you don't no longer count cards, do you, Andrew?
Not on the player side. I still count, but just to catch them now. I kind of made a deal with myself when I started writing the book that I wasn't going to play anymore, and that's
so
be a bad look for me at this point.
At the end of the road, you had called me and said, "Hey, I'm getting tired. This is just too much. I can't see my child," which we talked about you being a full-time father.
Yeah.
And you were ready to come back and join the Well, I don't know which side's the dark side. One side, the dark side, right? So actually, you came down and worked for me at the D for a while before you moved on to the Strip. Okay, so Blackjack Insiders, great book. If you haven't read it yet, I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video and tell you where to buy it. And I think you should take a look at it. Very interesting story, told from the real side. You know, some of these things are fabricated and blown up, like the bringing down the house. You know, there's some air of truth to it, but not the total. But Andy, your book, if you were embellishing it all, I couldn't tell from the read. So it was.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories out there that are based on a true story, and the Blackjack Insiders is the true story. It's what really happened. I didn't need to embellish. The numbers monetarily are a little smaller than people might expect, but that's because it's the truth. You know, it's what we were really doing and what we were really playing with.
It's always based on your bankroll too, right? If you're doing it right, you're gradually moving with your bankroll, or you're going to be dead very shortly.
Yeah.
So you've got this podcast, right? The Dropbox. You and Willie Allison. How'd that come about?
Willie reached out to me about the book. He read it and he made a nice tweet about it, encouraging people to buy it and read it, and said it was a good story. Actually, I reached out to Willie after I saw that tweet, which I think you forwarded me, by the way. You were like, Willie Allison's talking about you on his Twitter feed. And so that prompted me to get in touch with Willie, and we had a meeting over lunch to talk about just casino stuff like casino guys do. And a lunch led to a coffee, led to another coffee. All of a sudden, we've got some pretty similar ideas and some goals with podcasts. He wanted to do one to support his conference, and I wanted to do one to support my book and some other things. And we've had a lot of fun with it. It's been great. It's had some good traction audience-wise. It's been a lot of fun to do that with Willie. He's a great guy and super, super knowledgeable about all things game protection, casino, surveillance. It's been great.
On the most recent version, you guys discussed the coronavirus and give your insight to what you think it would look like in a casino world, and I thought it was spot on. I shared it any place I could possibly share it because, like I said, your and Willie's opinion on the realities of the situation and table games, like I said, spot on. So let me talk about something else you do. You're a advantage play expert. I guess you've been at the Table Games Conference. You've been on some panels. You also, I'm sure you consult if you get the opportunity. Right now, nobody's consulting on anything right now except for how to disinfect the casino. But if you was to, I wanted to ask you a question. Figure I get some free information here while I got you hooked on the line here. You can't get off until I hit the stop button. Advantage play. And we all know about card counting. Counting. We know about capping bets. We know about marking cards. I think one of the biggest forms of advantage play right now is psychological advantage play. And when I say psychological advantage play, there are so many jurisdictions with weak dealers who just started, weak floormen who've been in the business a year and now they're standing. I mean, sometimes they don't even deal and they're floor people. And it's so easy to convince the person, being that we're in a customer service, customer friendly industry, force them into a bad payoff or a wrong payoff. And even when, if you move that into the marketing realm, I know there's a lot of times that people, talk their way into comps. So this form of advantage play is eating away at the industry right now. And I think very few people are really taking notice of it. Do you believe that I'm on to something there?
Absolutely. I've talked about it on a number of different platforms, not in those exact words, but especially with the weak dealers and the dealer mistakes. Weak dealers is something that's eating away at bottom lines everywhere. But then when you add into the fact that the psychological advantage play, where people are taking dealers that might not even be weak and making them weak by second guessing them and calling them out on their decisions on roulette. And you see it a lot on Ultimate Texas Hold'em and those types of games where there's a lot of cards to take in. dealers can be persuaded to make a payoff that maybe they shouldn't be making. It's definitely a problem. You're spot on. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, and you know, being a dealer that, you know, when you deal 1,000 rounds a day, you can't remember what the third hand back was.
Right.
So, you know, if a guy makes a play and, you know, especially in Baccarat now, one of the big psychological advantage plays is, you know, that the players know the game better than the dealers. They'll let a dealer make a mistake, and then they'll 2 hands later, everybody's betting the max bet, and they'll say, you know, if they win, fine. If they lose, they'll say, oh, 3 hands ago, you know, this happened. And you know what? 90% of the time, the manager's out there giving their money back, because that's just what we do. Now, being that we went through COVID-19 and we've taken a lot of hits financially here in the industry, you know, maybe we'll be a little tougher on that and investigate it a little bit more. But when all the money was pouring in, everybody was just paying everybody. I believe that. So
I think dealers will correct themselves a lot too. Sorry to cut you off there,
yes.
but people don't think, or guys like us, you know, maybe don't remember how much pressure it is to be a dealer and to be staring at the cards trying to figure out a hand. I use Ultimate Text Hold'em as an example a lot because there's so many cards on the table. If a guy goes, hey, I got a straight there, the dealer's, it razzes him a little bit, and all it takes is little comments like that, and dealers will start making mistakes, whether they're weak or not, frankly.
Yeah, and when you got people watching 8 games, the dealer knows that Floorman ain't going to see them fix their mistake 99% of the time. Surveillance don't catch them; they're home free, right?
Right.
So, well, I just give you some food for a new podcast. I'd love you and Willie go at it about psychological warfare on advantage play. So let's talk about shutting down the Strip. You're a Las Vegas resident. You work there on the Strip. What was it like the first few days? I mean, did you think it was, it'll last till next week, or what was the thought pattern there? And was it eerie? Give me your opinion on what it was to you.
Sure. So starting off, I was really surprised at the few days leading up to the shutdown, because it didn't seem like the general public was tuned into the world at all. I wrote a piece for my website recently that kind of replayed the experience of just walking around on the floor a few days leading up to the shutdown and just seeing how many people were there and walking around with players' cards in their mouths and just, you know, coughing on each other. I mean, it was strange. And all I could think was like, don't you people know what's going on here? But then, you know, the world seemed to catch up with Las Vegas, and then, you know, the shutdown happened, and none of us really knew. Nobody really knew how long it's gonna take. A lot of casinos, I think, said 2 weeks originally, but, you know, some more savvy of us were going, there's no way 2 weeks is that's not. So, and then since then, it's just been kind of a wait and see. There hasn't been a lot of contact from leadership teams down to the employees. So nobody really knows. Everybody's just been kind of waiting around and waiting to see. I haven't heard anything about my property specifically. I know some of the other properties are opening tomorrow. So that'll be interesting. I have walked the Strip a couple of times since the quarantine, and you use the word eerie, and that's exactly what it was. I posted some pictures on my Twitter about just the vacant Strip and how nobody's there. And it's walking, I parked where I would normally park if I was going to work, and walking out to the Strip from there felt like I was in some kind of post-apocalyptic movie or something. It was really, really strange to see the Strip like that.
I've watched several bloggers online, and you know, some people skating board, and then my last blog I talked about, I seen people riding their horses down the Strip, which was just unimaginable to me. But I didn't
see that, but I saw a lot of people riding their bikes and walking their dogs. I took my dog down there. It's the only time you're really able to do something like that.
It's a once in a lifetime event, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I go back to hear you talk about people putting cards in their mouth. I never, you know, when I was going to the break room, you know, you'd see these people not even wash their hands and go right in and grab a sandwich. Yeah. Do you have any idea what germs is on them chips? And you've seen that over and over and over and over again. You talk about the communication. I'm very, very fortunate to work for the new company I'm working for, the Hard Rock International. We've had what we call sound checks twice a week, where there hasn't been a week where the management team has not been in connection with the president of the property. So it's very cool, and not just to talk, not to say, hey, we're doing this or doing that. We didn't know. We still don't know. We're hoping tomorrow to get some news from the governor, but at least we communicated, right? And we feel like the team is still together. So we're very fortunate on that. So, okay, you were there for the shutdown. Now, so tonight's the big night, right? It's 12:01. It's New Year's in Vegas, right?
Yeah, basically, right? It's a whole new thing starting.
Like Wynn or a couple of these places have decided not to open till 10 in the morning. But I know Derek down at the D, speaking of D Las Vegas, anyway, that door is going to be open at 12:01 down there. So what do you expect, Andrew? I mean, being a resident, I like I said in the last blog, I lived there 26 years, but I never lived through a pandemic. So what do you think is going to happen tonight when they open the doors?
To tell you the truth, Benny, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to walk the strip tomorrow with Willie. We're going to go to some of these properties that are opening and kind of see what it's like, see what kind of changes are made. There's several handfuls of them that are going to open tonight, so we're going to check them out tomorrow and see what it's like, because we really have no idea what to expect. Are people going to be there waiting and banging on the doors for them to open like Black Friday, or is it going to open to empty doors because people don't want to be out? It's going to be strange for sure.
What do you think Vegas needs to do now? There's no clubs, there's no convention business, there's probably no international flights for some time to come. So how does Vegas position itself to survive until that business that they've counted on for the last decade comes back?
That's a great question. And maybe I'm a little biased doing what I do for a living, but I think we really need to get back to our roots and get back to our gambling. Start focusing on trying to offer the best games to try to bring people in, because there's not a lot of other things right now to bring people in. The restaurant options are limited. They're coming back, but they're limited. Like you said, the nightclubs, day clubs, a lot of that stuff, the shows, the concerts, a lot of that stuff is limited or non-existent right now. So I think it'd be really nice to start focusing on gambling again, because that was something that was fading away for a while in favor of some of these other things.
So I got to wrap it up, but I wanted to ask you, I know you were scheduled to speak at the World Game Protection Conference, but it got postponed. Are you still on board for October? I think they're going.
Yes, yeah. So Willie had to postpone his show just like everybody else did. It's tentative for October, depending on the state of the world then. But yeah, the plan is to still do a speech. We're going to talk about kind of how card counting has changed over the years and what the biggest threats are right now, and kind of the state of the current player and how the casinos are combating it, and all kinds of things like that. So that's the plan. We'll see what happens when October comes around. I hope it works out. I'd love to do it. It's going to be a great show no matter when it happens.
Well, I hope it happens. And folks, if you get a chance to go out to the World Game Protection, it's a great, great show. Great opportunity to expand your knowledge, especially of the things that can attack your business. And knowledge is king. And I don't know, will we have G2E, the Table Games Conference? Will these happen? Hopefully they will, because it's a great, great opportunity to learn. Andrew, I want to thank you for being my guest today. It's a great conversation. Maybe I'll check back with you in a few weeks and see what it was like when you get back to work, and you can tell me what the strip was like, and we'll go from there. But for Dave, good luck. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on, Benny, and thanks for being such a good friend for such a long time. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, you make it easy, friend. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks.